Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hey, you know who's crazy?
No. You?
That John Lithgow. No. Have you seen him?
No, I haven't.
The photos, I was just cruising IMDb, and the photos of his, I guess it's his latest thing, Love is Strange. This was at the Tribeca Film Festival, I think. Man, he's got the full-on big white beard, and I don't know what's going on. One eye is kind of... What happened to John?
He looks like he'd be a good shrink. Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
John. It's been some time.
I haven't. What has he been in lately? I haven't seen him in ages.
There was that horrible movie that we talk about often. Years ago.
Cliffhanger?
No. Cliffhanger with Sly?
Oh, the other terrible movie?
Stop. Cliffhanger was great. When he drops his girlfriend, who was on who was on that show, the Northern Exposure? Oh, did I ever have a crush on her?
I don't know.
Please.
You're talking about Raising Cain, that other terrible one.
I love talking about Raising Cain. Wow, was that bad?
Yes.
Mm.
His whole storyline in LA Story was completely removed. Did you ever see any of that?
No.
Yeah, he had this whole subplot in LA Story where he was this like big Hollywood producer, and he was a friend of Steve Martin's, and he was always like in and out, and he's the one who was trying to teach him to skip when he was going somewhere, so he didn't look like he was late. He just looked like he was exercising or something. And then he comes flying in a jetpack in one scene. And it's just like all these crazy scenes. And
wow,
I think I must have seen them all like a deleted scenes or something somewhere. And yeah, but they cut the entire character of him throughout the entire film.
Wow.
It's like, sorry, John, we're cutting everything that has you in it out.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
No wonder he went on to make Raising Cain. It's like, talk about something that's really just like kills your confidence.
God, that is definitely that's like, you think it's like revenge casting. Yeah, I'm going to do something deep and dark, and turns out to be not a good decision. That's like sneaking a ding-dong behind the car in the dark, like a crazy hobo. Hey, everybody, it's The Next Reel. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. My name's Pete Wright. That there is Andy Nelson.
Yo.
And we spoil movies. We spoil the heck out of them, too. So if you haven't seen whatever movie we're talking about tonight, boom, spoiled already. So if you want to learn more about the movies that we've already spoiled for you, you can head over to thenextreel.com. You can catch the blog stylings of the once and future king, Steve Sarmento. You can join us in any of the social platforms of choice if you want to chat with us. We'd love to chat. And check out all the monthly new release reviews in addition to our weekly show, all the new release reviews we do on the monthly show, The Film Board. And we just did one.
Yeah, it was a good show.
That was a good show.
Good chat about old Cap.
Captain America and his sidekick Binky. No, Monkers. No, blue hair. What's his name? Bucky.
Bucky.
Oh, dear. Gonna be a night. Hey, you know what I want to talk about? I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this. I don't even know what to call it now. It seems like it's evolved yet again. We're going to have to come up with some sort of fancy name because it's no longer Andy versus the people. Oh, no.
That's right.
The mantle has shifted.
It is in the process of shifting. Yeah, it's going to be a steam robot versus the people.
Steam robot versus the people. So, this week, how would you characterize this week?
This was a pretty good week. I'm gonna say this was a pretty good week because
How exactly do you get away with saying that?
Well, because I told him, I'm like, this is one of those movies that has its dedicated fans, and people are going to know this movie backwards and forwards, and it's going to be a real challenge to make it past day one, maybe day two. And, we made it to somewhere in day...
It was day two,
It was day two, but it was the very end of day two.
All right.
So...
All right, that's fair.
It's like you go
I think
after
you would have to
movies
say, though, when you get trounced on day two... it's a trouncing.
It wasn't a trouncing. It took a lot of guesses to get there.
You know what's funny? It did take a lot of... That's the thing I like the most, is that there were lots of guesses. The thing that I find so funny about it is I knew what movie it was, and I went through every single picture, and I couldn't place it until day 6. Even day 5, the big toe picture, I didn't picture. This was a movie... Like,
Well, yeah, clearly not a movie
this
either of
was
us have seen
not
in
a
a while.
movie for me. But this is one of those things that I think an old steam robot. I think what is so great about it is that it went from Spies, the Fritz Lang film last week,
Right.
to Pretty Woman, and I have a feeling. How would you call the week to come? Would this be a revenge posting? I think he's going to be ready to get back at the people.
We'll see. He definitely has some wild and crazy options coming up.
This guy, encyclopedic catalog, understanding of films that are perfect, I think, for the contest. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yes, absolutely. But yes, and it was Mrs. Harding. We didn't say. But
we didn't
congratulations
say
to Mrs. Harding, who did figure it out on day 2, and she is now entered to win our pony prize, which does not include a pony.
Excellent, Mrs. Harding. Welcome to the club.
That's right.
Got it on the maps of the Stars Homes photo. He's got the money on a pink couch. The Hollywood sign. How do you, a guy wearing socks? I could see the big toe in the thing is kind of an iconic photo now. I get that.
But it's one of those movies that for people who know, it's like Love Actually. You know, it's like people who know those movies and watch them like all the time are going to know the images when they come up.
I get it.
Like I have some of those movies. Like if you put something from a Monty Python movie up, even in just a completely obscure image, I probably would be able to figure it out pretty quickly.
Oh, Monty Python, Brazil, Blade Runner.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm not arguing with you. I don't want to arguing with you. I'm
not arguing that with you.
Oh, Andy. Hey, I have an idea. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, Ben Lott, one of our listeners, left us a few nice comments about our Chronicle episode over on Facebook. So I thought we should read those. He said, "You guys really did a great job on this episode. I love the
why? Thank you.
Yeah, I love the analysis and totally agreed with almost all of it. My only issue is that I did not like Dane DeHaan or Dane DeHaan. What did we decide it was? Dane DeHaan, I think.
I think that's what you decided.
That's what I decided. Dane, give us a call and clear things up because we're confused. I know I was supposed to feel sympathy for him because of his situation, but I never felt like his character was ever someone I liked. As a result, the emotional impact of the end is a bit lost. I find myself rooting for Matt to kill him, whereas if they had made Andrew likable, the ending could have been really emotional." And so I replied about that. And, he does agree that it's great seeing a supervillain origin, and it's nice kind of getting that story, and I think that it really boils down to how connected you're able to get with that character. And I think for me, I was able to connect with him quite a bit. I liked that place that he was coming from, a person kind of struggling with abuse, self-esteem, and how when he was given the tools of the superpowers, basically, how that turned him into a very dark way. And it was interesting. I really like that. But thank you so much for your comments, Ben, and thank you for listening.
This made me think we should do a series of supervillain origin stories.
Are there that many?
I don't know that there are, but we got to be able to squeeze 2-3 movies out of it, right?
See, the thing is, most
kind
of the super
Unbreakable maybe is kind of, it's not really totally.
But see, that's a superhero.
Yeah,
and see, that's the thing is, like, every super villain origin story is really also a superhero origin story.
I know. Yes. Well, and you could sort of make that case about Chronicle too.
No, absolutely. It's just in Chronicle, I think the supervillain stands out a little bit more. I don't think the superhero is quite as interesting a character.
Well, this is your homework, is we need to figure that out. Like, there have got to be some other movies that give us that supervillain. And I'm sure it's one of those, or somebody's going to comment, and it will be so obvious that we missed it.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. If you know of any great supervillain origin stories, let us know.
There you go. Let's do trailers. Okay, I'm going to go first.
Yeah, let's get yours out of the way.
Out of the way?
It's so scary.
It's not. It is. Okay, it's scary. Here's the thing. I don't know. I mean, So this is a film that hit, I think it hit, what did it hit? Toronto in October sometime 2013. It hasn't been a hit wide release yet. It comes from writers Guillermo Amoedo and Eli Roth. Yes, that Eli Roth also directed it. It is called The Green Inferno. Now, you know me. Right.
I do.
I'm not as crazy about the horror.
I was surprised that you picked this one.
Right. So I am curious, if you were to step back and try to rationalize, why would Pete pick a movie like this? I'm curious what you would say.
I think it's the realism that Eli Roth went with, and to cast genuine tribal peoples in this film who've never been on film before.
Okay, that's really good. That's a great guess. It's not accurate.
No.
So this film is about, first of all, I think the plot is delicious. Oh, I said it. It is about a group of students.
You know what, Pete? That was tasteless.
A group of student activists who head from their posh homes in New York City, and they head to the Amazon to save a dying tribe of indigenous peoples. And oh, surprise! They get there, and it turns out the indigenous peoples don't need saving; they need food. Oh, and they're cannibals. So, you know that there is a subgenre of horror that I deeply love, and that is the zombie subgenre.
Oh, yes.
I'm a huge fan, and I think, as it turns out, by extension, I think I'm just generally a fan of people eating other people.
Wow.
Because the cannibal subgenre is another one that I really find fascinating. Fascinating. Right?
Wow. No wonder your daughter is in the Hunger Games boot camp. Kill!
No, it's not. It's not cannibal boot camp. I was a big fan of We Are What We Are. In the original, right? That I already talked about. I realized that I have sort of a history of people eating people trailers in films, and this was, it's one that was sort of owned by this sort of Italian films of the 80s and 90s, and there were late 80s Cannibal Holocaust and Natura Contro was another one, and so. Like, these are kind of the films. Like, those are on my shelf with, Phantasm. I get a lot of joy out of Phantasm too, kind of. So that's kind of how I classify these. And so I got very excited when I saw that they were doing this one. The trailer looks exceedingly creepy, and so I'm excited to see it. It looks like it's going to hit the US of A. September 5th, 2014.
I like that the rating, it says rated R for aberrant violence and torture, grisly, disturbing images, brief graphic nudity, sexual content, language, and some drug use. But it's got aberrant violence. Wow.
And there is no, like in the trailer, there is no actual, eating of the flesh. They withhold a lot of that, but there is some absolute creepiness going on in this trailer. It's creepy.
Thoroughly creepy. Thoroughly creepy.
All right, there's me.
Well, good. I am actually interested in seeing that. Even though Eli Roth, I find him a bit arrogant and obnoxious, but he has made some pretty good horror movies, so I give him that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of the thing, right?
That's the thing. It's to be expected.
Man.
Well, my trailer is a totally different direction. It's a It looks like a nice little film. It's a drama western called A Night in Old Mexico that features none other than Robert Duvall. And it looks really intriguing. It looks like a great little kind of character crime story about this old cowboy who lives in a house that he's basically getting kicked out of and forced to move into a trailer park, but he doesn't want to. And just in time, his long lost grandson comes to visit him, and they go off on a kind of a road trip to Mexico, and they pick up some hitchhikers who, to get the plot moving forward, apparently are criminals, and these guys, dump them off when they go to the bathroom, but without realizing that these guys left a bag in the back seat that's full of money. So now these guys are chasing them around in Mexico. They've got all sorts of, crime lords and everything after them. It looks really interesting, and I there's something about Robert Duvall in anything that pretty much pulls me in right away. He's just so imminently watchable that I really enjoy his presence. And when he's playing kind of a cowboy character, and when he plays his age as kind of that old cantankerous man, I really enjoy it. And I don't know. I think that there's something kind of quiet. This looks kind of more like kind of a quiet crime story, and I really love the look of everything about it. Emilio Aragon is directing it, and he is, I believe, a Spanish director who is from a family of artists, and he's actually one of those jack of all trades guys he's directed, he's composed music for a whole bunch of his movies, he's acted in stuff, he's produced, he's writing. He's kind of that, jack of all trades sort of guy, and is really kind of spreading himself out around the world, making all sorts of interesting movies, including this one.
I think it looks great. I'm right with you on Robert Duvall. Anytime he plays the cantankerous old man, I'm excited. I mean, hell, I liked him when he did it in Days of Thunder.
Yeah, right.
I mean that it was a treat to see him in this film. I think it's this is one of the movies. The first thing I thought of was, man, I'm gonna want to see that movie with my dad.
Yeah, it does feel like one of those movies.
Totally.
Get together with pops and watch something. Yeah, it has that vibe to it. So.
Absolutely. Good pick.
Yeah.
Did you say when it opened?
It doesn't have a release date yet. It played at, I think it had its U.S. premiere at South by Southwest last month. And then it's played in Spain, and it's played in some film festivals in Spain. It opens in Spain in May, but it doesn't have a U.S. release date yet. But the trailer just came out recently, so I'm hoping that they'll get the release dates figured out pretty soon. I'm guessing it will be late summer, early fall.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so our movie tonight, okay. We did this listener's choice thing. And as always, it's a little bit of a risk to do these listener's choice things, I think. And yet, 2 out of 2 times, our listeners have come through. And so thank you very much. This time, the pick comes from Alex Curran, and he chose The Matrix. 1999, sci-fi classic from Andy and Lana Wachowski, starring Keanu Reeves. And we had a chance to talk to Alex, as we are prone to do. And so here you go. Here's a little conversation we had with Alex about why he thought The Matrix would be ripe for us to talk about on this show. Yeah?
Absolutely. It's our listener's choice show, and Alexander Curran, you picked The Matrix for us to listen to, or for us to talk about.
Yes, I did.
Which is fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your connection to movies, and I don't know why this movie is the one that you think that we should talk about.
Okay, yeah, I was real nervous when you guys picked my name out of there. I think I'd only had one entry in there, so I was kind of surprised that my name got picked. But a few movies popped right into my head, and The Matrix was one, because I think I've heard you guys mention it once or twice in kind of passing of like, you mentioned The Matrix, and it's like, oh, someday we'll talk about that, and it kind of sounded like you guys had some issues going there.
Andy has issues always.
I generally have issues. No, not with the first movie. I don't have any issues at all with the first movie.
Yeah. So for me, it really kind of hit for me because, the whole reason I kind of listen to your show is not, I don't tend to go to movies and watch them really analytically and try and pick them apart or anything. I'm strictly for entertainment value. If I come out of a movie and I say, hey, I had a good time, then it was a good movie to me. And so, I kind of listen to shows like yours to kind of get into that kind of deeper look at movies. And so when I was trying to pick one, I was trying to, if I look at the movies on my shelf, I'm saying, okay, a lot of these might fall into the guilty pleasures, but nothing that's really too deep. So the first few ones that came to mind, probably my favorite movie is Die Hard. But, if you guys picked that apart and it didn't end up in your top 10, I might have to stop listening to the show.
The stakes are very high.
So, and I was thinking that, and, The Matrix again came to mind because that time, 1999, I just graduated from college. I was just gotten my first job, doing video and things like that, but I was only working part-time and I usually had my Fridays free. And so I kind of taken up just every Friday going to the movies and just picking something and seeing it. And when I went to see The Matrix, I hadn't heard a lot about it. And, maybe one trailer. And, that day we weren't just inundated with everything about a movie. So, when I went to see it and I watched this movie, I had no idea what was going on to start with. And it just, all these different things about the movie just really clicked with me. I had taken a lot of Asian cinema classes. And so the martial arts and anime influences really clicked with me, and the sci-fi and the thriller aspect, and it just, everything just sort of culminated all together, and it really, really clicked with me, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then later on, as you start to delve in and learn about the things, and the DVD came out and you got to see all the behind the scenes features, it really fed into my, kind of production background and really delving into how all this stuff was made. And it just kind of just for me to made a real impact as far as maybe not necessarily the story as a whole, but just, that time in my life and, learning about filmmaking. And it's really kind of hit on all those notes for me.
And now where do you stand with the rest of, the other two movies? And also, beyond that, this was, I think, one of the first times where even maybe before Marvel kind of got into this, really kind of creating this expansive universe that really extended beyond just the movies, but then they had all these short films and they had the video game where you could have additional scenes, and there was just so much more to it. Were you a fan of the whole series, and did you kind of absorb all of that, the whole world of the Matrix?
Yeah. I was a fan of they had the Animatrix, which was the series of short,
right,
different forms of that, and so I enjoyed getting into that. And I probably had the same issues that people had with the second and third movies, where honestly, I haven't seen them nearly as much as I've seen the first one. And again, the same thing with the movie going experience. I would say I enjoyed them when I went to see them, even if I found them, more confusing. And kind of funny that was one of the things I liked about the first one is for a good half hour, 45 minutes, you're in the same boat as Neo. Is they keep saying, what is the Matrix? But they won't tell you. And you have no idea what's going on. And, until they lay it all out for you. But then, in the second and third movies, I kind of felt like it's well, they're not really adding anything that much more interesting to it, to me.
Yeah, that's a funny bit. I went back and I already watched the movie, and again, I was so excited when you picked it, and started watching, because this is one of the things I want to take Andy to task when we talk about this show, because because I think I have less problem with the second and third movie in the context of the expanded universe, and so I'm really excited to talk about this and what they did. And I think it's, I think the conversation is going to end up growing a little bit than beyond the first film. I hope it does.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd have to watch the other two. I only got to rewatch the first one for this, but I'd have to watch the other two really to give a better opinion of them now.
So do you feel like it held up for you? You say you watched the film again recently. Did it hold up to your memory?
It did. I mean, it's some of the things as we see, some of the CG work you can see, and it's not quite as sharp as I would remember it. But for the most part, when I watch it, it's kind of one of those last movies I think where they really had a nice blend of the practical effects versus the CG. I mean, it's like when you see people flipping through the air, they were actually doing like the martial arts, the wire work and things like that. So they actually had their bodies physically doing that thing. And I think that added a lot more realism to it. Whereas nowadays it would be a CG model of a person flying through the air. And, even to me, that still looks, rather fake. And so I really do think it still holds up, and the blending of where there are CG elements versus what is, live action, holds up a lot better than some other movies.
I agree. I can't wait to talk about this film. I think it's a great pick, and so appreciate you throwing this into the mix. It's about time, Andy.
Yeah, no, I haven't watched it in a while, and I'm excited to go back and rewatch it. And I am actually interested in going back and revisiting the series at another time, just to kind of look at it again now farther away from it. My recollection is I had a lot more problems with the second one, not as many with the third one, but I am kind of curious to revisit it.
I mean, it is difficult to watch the first one without those other ones in mind, since you already kind of know where things are going. You can't recapture that, that kind of the mystery that was there when I first saw it. But, if you just enjoy it for what it is, I think you'll, have a good time with it.
Sure.
That should be a disclaimer on the film, on the box.
Just try to forget what you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, we sure appreciate you doing this, and I hope our conversation holds up to your expectation of the film. I'm sure if it doesn't, it's going to be Andy's fault.
But at least it won't lose us a listener like
like Die Hard would have.
Die Hard. Although I have a feeling Die Hard would end up pretty high on our list, because that's a pretty high on my list of films.
I worry that I would not be able to watch Die Hard with a keen enough eye. I love that film so much.
I know, it is good.
That's good to know. It'll end up higher ranked.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
My wife doesn't know this, but in my head, our bedroom is actually called Nakatomi Plaza. I'll never tell her that, but that's the truth. Alexander Curran, thank you so much for listening to the show. Thanks so much for sitting down with us and talking a little bit about the Matrix. And here we go. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna find out what the Matrix is.
Whoa. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What is happening to me?
The answer is out there, Neo. It's the question that drives us.
What is the Matrix?
The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
They're watching you, Neo.
Human beings are a disease. You are a cancer of this planet. And we are the cure. Get me the hell out of here!
Welcome to the real world.
So you're here to save the world.
So what do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
No one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy. Because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
1999, this film. Can you believe this flick is 15 years old?
Yeah, it just turned 15 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
March 31st is when it came out. So yeah, happy birthday, Matrix.
Happy birthday, Matrix.
15 years old. Holy cow.
Yeah.
It held up amazingly well. It really held up. Everything about it still just really is rock solid. And it amazed me watching it again, just looking at all the detail, all the effects, all the stunt work. But I think what most held or just was rock solid still is the story. Like all the way through, I feel as if these are two writers who had come up with a concept and they found the perfect way to tell it, and they told it. And I think this is one of the things that I inevitably we're going to talk about the sequels at some point, but this is one thing that I feel came about with the sequels, where I think this first one is really a perfect film by itself. And if they never made any more, I think it would have been just rock solid and just really just all around one of the great sci-fi films. The fact that the second and third one ended up getting made, I don't think diminished the first one at all. I think the first one really stands up very solidly, like I just said. But they took all the ideas and they just kind of kept building on it, and the ideas and the effects and the stunts and just everything. And it got a lot more confusing and it got a lot more dense. And I still find it all really fascinating, the entire world of all this, with Zion and the architect and everything else that comes along. But it is a little more muddled, and I do find it, it's very ambitious, but I do find a little more to wade through going through the second and third films. But this film, watching it again, it just was like, man, this is why it just felt so fresh and original, and this is why everybody wanted to see those sequels, because this one was so stinking good.
Yeah. Okay, it was. And I remember being... I remember being bowled over by this film. I mean, I was bowled over, and I was bowled over particularly by the opening sequence, right? I mean, you get the conversation between between Trinity and Cypher, and as you close in and move through the Matrix title code, into the font, the computer font, which I thought that blew me away. Like that was cool in 1999. And then we go into the Captain, your men are already dead. And we see Trinity in our first use of bullet time, which I really could have gone home after that sequence. Like that was worth the price of admission to me for a film like this. And then we're introduced to this wonderful mystery. Well, I should say this wonderful mystery becomes resolved for us. This mystery that they had so brilliantly marketed to us over the previous, several months, is resolved over the course of the first act or two, and we get a sense of kind of what the Matrix is. And I felt. Which happens rarely, I felt rewarded by the resolution of it. I didn't find that it was something that was kind of front loaded, that ended up being not as worthwhile a reveal based on the marketing. Like, it was earned resolution, and I thought that was very powerful. I love the just sort of mashup of Gnosticism and Buddhism, and and then playing with these religious motifs in turning this sort of Buddhist appreciation of wisdom on its ear by making everybody an enemy and firing just hellacious amounts of firearms and killing many, many, many people, which I find enormously and subversively entertaining.
Yeah, they're all just batteries after all.
Right, exactly. And so this whole concept, I think what they did to mash up all these concepts and give people so much to chew on, I think is really fascinating. On this viewing, I have to say, like, I found myself sort of slapping my head a number of times. There are little things that I the number of just, it feels like this film was a little bit made for one-liners, and one-liners coming from Trinity are okay, coming from Cypher are great, coming from Morpheus are fine, though few, coming from Agent Smith are fantastic, coming from Keanu Reeves are goofy, and I find I just had a harder time sticking with old Neo on this viewing than I ever had in the past. And I think I was distracted by so much of the visual hoopla in this film, which was brilliant, and the premise up front, which was brilliant. That by the time it hits to some of his more important sequences, it allowed some of the production choices to become a little bit more transparent and obvious to me. I had a harder time with it.
Interesting. I think I must be one of those people who I just don't have a problem with Keanu, and I don't have a problem with Kevin Costner either. So maybe I'm good with those 2x4s, as you call them. But
thanks for tossing that back, by the way, as you call them.
You call them. No, I actually really enjoy Keanu in this, and I think that he plays this role well, and I do enjoy him as this person kind of seeking something more but not knowing what it is, when he's just Thomas A. Anderson in the beginning and he's just lost. I enjoy that vibe that he's putting out, where he can't quite figure out why things just don't seem to fit right, and he just always looks uncomfortable, and I don't know, I enjoy all of that. And then once he takes the pill and he goes into the real world and all of that, and becomes part of this squad that's kind of going in and out of the Matrix to talk to the Oracle and try to figure out if he's the one or not, and all that sort of stuff. I like that. I like the toughness that he conveys. I guess I don't have a problem with with the one-liners and stuff. I mean, I don't think that I don't know. It doesn't feel, nothing feels that forced to me, and I think that, to me, he still reeks cool when I watch this film.
Reeks cool.
Maybe it's the duster. I don't know, but
it must be the duster.
I know when I wear my duster, I look that good. So.
I'll give it to you. Only because I have 15 years of great memories of this film, and it's only, as always, we ruin the experience for me when I have to actually look at a film sort of critically, when I notice the things that have frustrated me in viewings of other films that I have great memories of, and this one I don't know who to blame it on, because some of the stuff that he gets away with in this film I think worked just fine. I know kung fu. That's one of my favorite sequences. The montage training sequence is one of my favorite sequences in the film. The test sequence, him and Morpheus on the kung fu floor. I love watching the two of them go at it. I find that really a rewarding sequence. But there are other sequences. The sequence where he's on the phone and it's raining outside, and I can't see now. I have the script in front of me. I'm not on the right page. But he, Trinity calls him and says, you got to meet us under the bridge, and he says something dramatic, and then thunder in the background. These Foley sounds and the film is littered with those sorts of dramatic kind of noir stingers that I think detract from the film for me. I notice those so often that and I find them really distracting and sort of trite at this point. Now, maybe that's because I've seen 15 years of films since then that have done it poorly, and now I'm sort of exhausted. I totally get that. But it just doesn't hold up. It feels a little bit, from a production standpoint, it feels a little bit dated, which I think is ironic given how well I feel like the effects themselves, both the practical and the special effects, actually do hold up.
It's inevitably, because it was the first to jump into this whole bullet time experience. I mean, and really it's not the first, but it's the first to do it as much as it did, and to do it in such great effect. My recollection is that the abysmal Lost in Space movie actually used it first, which was what, 97? I think 96 or 7.
Yeah, I'm almost sure of that. 1998. Actually,
98. Okay, 98. So it came out just the year before, but that was my first, the first time I had seen Bullet Time, and I believe
that was their hyperdrive effect, right?
Right, exactly, right. Like when they flew through the sun,
right?
And it was nonsense. But yeah, that was the whole thing in that film. How they used Bullet Time, and I think it had been used in a few commercials as people were trying to get a sense as to how do you use this thing. But I don't think anybody had used it to the great effect that they were using it in The Matrix, where it wasn't just a cool thing to use, but it actually kind of fit in to the story as these characters start learning how to manipulate this space that they're in, this construct that they're in, and move at greater speeds, and climb walls and jump ridiculous distances and all that sort of stuff, and eventually fly. That's what I think the Bullet Time was really effective at. Is it was such kind of like an integrated part of the plot, and I really enjoy that. But the danger of being kind of the first where you're doing it is like, because they really emphasize it every time they're using it, it creates those great slow-mo moves around the actors as they're doing like the jump, like as Neo and Agent Smith jump at each other in the subway and are shooting at each other and trying to punch each other, and they're grabbing each other and spinning and falling to the floor, all in bullet time as it's spinning around. It kind of does feel a little repetitive as it kind of keeps happening time after time after time as we keep seeing this bullet time thing. And it does bring me back to the very first Star Trek film, Star Trek the Motion Picture, which also felt very much like, these are our effects. We need to make sure we are doing it as effectively and slowly as possible, so everybody can enjoy them as in the fullest way, in the fullest extent. And that film now, I cannot make it through that film. I think it is one of the most tedious films to watch in the Star Trek films. And but it does feel kind of like maybe this is a little akin to that, where it's like,
now tell me, you're talking about the 1979, right? Star Trek, the very first. Okay,
yeah,
right.
the motion
first
picture,
cinematic one. All right,
right, and because they really lingered on every effect, like the shots of the Enterprise leaving the space dock. I mean, it felt like that went on for 15 minutes,
I think it actually does go on for 15 minutes.
It probably does go on for 15 minutes. And that's kind of the thing. It's like they were really emphasizing the effects because they wanted people to enjoy it and feel that presence. That's what, in a way, that's kind of what The Matrix falls into. It's a trap now, and it's only a trap because of time, the passage of time. Jumping back to 99, we weren't bothered by that. But now, 15 years later, we notice it so much more because we have seen it a million times in a million different ways, and we've seen it improve so much more over those 15 years.
Truly, and I would say this is one of those sequences that doesn't bother me, or one of these these tricks that doesn't bother me in The Matrix at all. I'm still fascinated by it every time it occurs, and I think it's because they do a good job of changing it up a little bit. Where it starts, we have Trinity, and it goes around her. We do have Neo on the roof, and we have the once we bring two people into it, as you mentioned, Agent Smith and Neo are fighting in the subway. There's another use of it, and then finally we have one where we're buzzing along the floor in the rain-soaked or the sprinkler-soaked office as Morpheus is about to jump out of the helicopter, and it allows us to zero in on the point of impact on his calf as he's hit by a bullet, and that's one that I find enormously impactful because first of all, you can't even tell that it's really the bullet time trope until you get there and realize that we're also using this crazy, high frame rate, slow motion to close in on this and really freeze that water in a way that is unworldly. I find that just really satisfying even to this day. Yeah. And the fact that they are doing this incredible, bullet time sequence with these cameras, and then looking around that there is, they're using an old school like 4-story mat of painting of the cityscape behind the helicopter. I find that just really delicious. This is a movie that really was kind of right at that the shift between practical and computer effects, and I think the Wachowskis at this point were doing some really, really good practical work. And
I think a lot of that came from the budget. This was their second film, and they intended this to be their first film, but no one would give them the money. They're like, well, come on. I mean, it's a great script, but as first-time filmmakers, we can't give you $100 million to go out and make this. And so they went back and they did Bound for $6 million, which is a fantastic film, great little kind of low-budget film that came out that got them a lot of acclaim. It gave the studio a little more confidence that they could trust them to do this. They still weren't sure about how they're going to pull all these effects off, but these guys really presented themselves well, and they knew, like I think they were from the world of comics, and they really had a sense of the storyboard, and they could draw out like everything. They worked with their storyboard artist, and the three of them would kind of collaborate and figure out basically every shot. And when you look at the storyboard and you look at the finished frame, it's like they had it in their heads exactly how they wanted it, got it on the paper with the storyboard artist, and then they shot it exactly that way. They were able to make this movie. It was $65 million that they ended up making it for, so it was definitely a big budget, but they were really smart about how they used their money. Things like the mats, things like there's a scene when Morpheus brings Neo back into the Matrix so he can go meet the Oracle. And while they're driving, all of the driving scenes, instead of going out and filming on the streets, I mean, it's kind of twofold. I'm sure it was to save some money, but also they wanted to give it a slightly off look. And so all of the driving stuff is shot with rear screen projection because they wanted it to feel slightly artificial. Now that Neo, for the first time, is back in the Matrix, looking at it now as somebody who had believed it to be real, now looking at it as an artifice, and by doing it as a rear screen and saving money that way, you're able to kind of create that and lend itself to creating a more interesting looking film.
That's actually one I didn't pick up. I did not know that, the rear screen projection, but I never actually thought about it.
Yeah,
but you're absolutely right.
You?
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a great pick. Great catch. Okay. So let's tell me how important, or let's look at it this way. When you think back on the film, how often do you find yourself trying to unravel the meaning of it and the symbolism of it? Is that important for you?
I don't think that this one is that complicated. Like, I feel this one is fairly easy to grasp.
Are you saying that in contrast to the other two?
Yes, very
really?
Specifically, yeah. The other two I think get so much more specific about defining just everything to the point where it's just like it becomes much more complicated. It feels. This one I always felt was very clear, and I never felt like it was that confusing. You've got the Matrix, this artificial world that is basically being fed into humans' brains that are all, instead of actually living in that world, are all basically batteries for these the sentience and the robotic creatures that are essentially running Earth now.
Right. Well, I get that much. I'm just thinking back to the hue and cry about the symbolism in this film, and I'm with you on that same point. Like, I feel like this is a film that actually wears its symbols right on its sleeve. And I also did not feel like I was particularly psychologically saddled with the need to determine every pick up at what everything means, mostly because I think the Wachowskis are pretty darn clear. that the Neo means the one, and it means new in Latin, and it is the rebirth, and you see what I'm saying? Like they make pretty clear what their intention is, and so that's what I was getting at there. Like how important was that to you?
Right, and even like Trinity, you know, I mean, there's a lot of those sorts of references all through the film. That, I mean, I to me, that's the fun part of the film. That's the interesting element that's added to this sci-fi world that makes it a really unique watch and a fun one to go back and look at.
I mean, I agree. I guess that's what I was getting at. Did you see this also as a mystery that needed to be sort of unraveled to get any sort of satisfaction out of it? Because there were people who did.
No, yeah, absolutely, and there always will be things that you can go back and look at and pull apart meticulously piece by piece and look at everything from the Alice in Wonderland references to the what is it? Simulacra and simulation.
Simulation, right?
And biblical references. You've got there's anime things in there. There's things that they pull from just everything that essentially influences it, and you can find all those influences all through the film, and you can kind of look at and find this interpretation of the story. To me, those are elements that make it a more exciting sci-fi tale. I really enjoy the film for what it is. I think that that's a very interesting element to it. The addition to Zion. I mean, Zion's only mentioned in the first one, but you get to go to Zion in the next ones. And just seeing how all that comes together, I think is really fascinating. I don't think that it's something that you have to dwell on in order to make it an enjoyable film. I think it's definitely additions to it that just give it more meaning and more layers to talk about. And, just like True Romance, this is the sort of film that it's great to go sit down and have a piece of pie and talk about afterward, because it is throwing all those things at you, and it's fun to kind of absorb them and analyze them. But I don't think that it's going to change the meaning of the film. Like, for me, it never has. But I do enjoy how they're playing with all those ideas.
Well, how they're playing with the ideas, I can see that, and how thorough they are with these little Easter eggs that you find. This is one of those films that is just really ripe with those little Easter eggs. And if you're and what I find really interesting is when you're sitting with someone who's watching the film who's educated in a particular theology, for example, watch this movie with a minister. Because boy, they can pull out details that I miss every time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting that the Wachowskis understand that, and they actually on the Blu-ray, I think I had mentioned a couple weeks ago how when they release this, they're very reticent to talk about it, because they feel like if they give people their interpretation of what everything means, it makes other people feel like, oh, okay, and then those other people shut up and they don't say anything because, well, those are the filmmakers. I'm going to take them at their word because they're the ones who made it. But so instead of doing a commentary on the film, they actually had philosophers who loved the film talk about it, and then on the other track they had critics who didn't like the film talk about it. And so you can get different perspectives from different groups of people about what's working, what's not working, and really kind of hear all the different people coming at it from different angles, and then take out of that what you want.
I love it.
And I think that's
a great idea.
Well, and I think that's what's great about a film like this is that it can be something that is just a very superficial, enjoyable science fiction film that you can watch. Like kind of like I was alluding to earlier, it's just like, it's this whole thing about the batteries and the robots and all that sort of thing. But you can kind of dig deeper and have some pie and chat about, all this stuff about, Trinity and Neo and the rebirth and Christianity and Jesus. And there's so many different things that you can start throwing out there and have a really interesting conversation. I enjoy that aspect of this as a film, that you can dig in and come up with other ideas, and it makes it a film that for me is really enjoyable to watch and rewatch. And I think this is one of those films that benefits when you watch it again, when you can actually go and talk about it with someone afterward, because I think there are a lot of things to talk about with this film.
Okay. All right.
So let's talk.
Well, that's what I'm getting. I would love to hear it, and because again, there's a lot I love about this movie, and I love the Easter egg sort of detail of it. And I have yet in 15 years to have any sort of a read of this film or learn any more of those sort of Easter eggs that has changed the way I think about the film. And I even would say that about a film like, I had a new read on Troll Hunter after talking about it. That was a vastly less complex film. But again, I mean, for me, the film wears enough of its symbolism on its sleeve that I feel like I'm able to enjoy it on the surface and at depth at the same time. Like I don't find myself transformed.
Well, no, and I think that may be one of the faults of when the filmmakers do wear the ideas on their sleeve in a film like this. It's all right there. It's easy to kind of grasp those things, the the names, the places, the references. It's easy to grasp all that and see where they're coming from and what they're trying to do with it. I don't think it's a film that I've never heard anybody talking about that watching this film hitting on all those points and having a new understanding of something. I've never heard that, but I do enjoy just hearing how people can pull those different those elements out and kind of just come up with things. And that's I enjoy that aspect of this film, is that it's a film that, yes, it's all there, but the way that they're blending Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism,
it's a philosophical mashup.
Yeah, it
for sure.
The cyberpunkness of all of that sort of stuff, the anime feel, throwing in the bullet time and everything. Just throw all that stuff in there, and what kind of mashups can you create? And it's not a film that I think makes me change the way I'm going to think about the universe, even though that's kind of what it's alluding to. But I certainly walk out of this as a sci-fi film having more interesting conversations than, Man of Steel or some other, big sci-fi film that may come out. That's probably not a good example, but, I find this, I enjoy that. I guess I just don't care that they're wearing all that on the sleeve of the films. I feel like the Wachowskis are very ambitious filmmakers, and they like to just get it all in there. Cloud Atlas, come on. They really just cram so much stuff in there that makes it a really fun watch, and something that gives you all of this stuff that you can then just kind of take out and just kind of look at again piece by piece.
Well, I think it celebrates all of the things we love to crank out when we talk about this sort of cyberpunk aesthetic, right? It's this idea that there is a world in a world, this idea that we are we're ultimately asleep and unaware, and that our real growth comes out of conquering our own sense of awareness of what is around us. I think that is it celebrates all of these concepts at once, and that makes this sort of 2+ hours of it. That's what makes it the experience, and that's what allows us to think about it. For me, the initial conceit of of the batteries is enough for me. That is something that was mind blowing. Walking out of the theater that night, that was the thing I wanted to really think about. This whole idea that there's somebody watching me, and that I'm not aware of that. Of that stalking. I found that fascinating. So I don't know. I feel like we could certainly circular logic this to death, but let's talk a little bit more about the production, shall we?
Yeah.
And the visual effects in particular. We've already talked a little bit about the bullet time. Do you have more to say about Mr. Gaeta's work in that arena?
I don't think so. I really find bullet time a fascinating technique, and I really do enjoy the way that that camera technique of having a very large number of cameras essentially on a rig around the action that you're trying to capture. I enjoy the way that it has evolved, and seeing it now, when you see it like at a football game or something where the sides change and you've got the bullet time zip around the stadium to get everything set up as the other team as the offense comes out. It's just like
right.
It's like, wow, that's just a crazy use of bullet time, but it's kind of fun to see. It's always fun to kind of see what they're coming up with in regards to bullet time. But I really enjoy that technique. Looking at some of the behind the scenes, I can only imagine how complex it is to try to figure it out. I mean, it's something that you don't think about, but I mean, in order to have as many cameras as they do filming a scene that actually works, they have to every camera has to be set up with laser precision, literally, where they've got the camera set up, they've got a laser pointer on it, and they have to hit the mark exactly so that when they put all the shots together, it's fluid. Otherwise, if a camera is slightly off, it's going to all of a sudden have a little jump in it, or it'll feel like a bump. And so it's really a very complex process. And I would love to be on a set where they're filming in bullet time and just really get a sense as to how they work all of that. Because it's an amazing process.
It is an amazing process, and I think the thing that today is easier thanks to just the raw processing power. But what we can't underscore enough is that in 1999, the idea of taking these individual frames and interpolating the space between them was a significant challenge.
Yeah.
Being able to make that a smooth move between frames that on these cameras that are, what would you say, 9 inches, a foot apart?
Yeah. Wow.
They've got 120 cameras that are in this, in a circle that are about a foot apart. That's a very large space to have to go through and make that a single smooth motion is akin, I think, to practically creating the image, creating the effect from scratch with like a CG model. Today, I think that would be the alternative approach today. Maybe just easier to take the 3D version of Neo. And in some cases, I think they did that in later films rather than set up the complex bullet time. They just they can create that in different ways now.
Well, and now, they have a new technique, and I'm going to have to dig around and see if I can find a link for it. I've only seen it applied to tennis, actually. And it may be one of those camera techniques that I honestly don't know how you could really effectively use it in a film, but it does seem like a really interesting tool that you could use in sports. This tennis match, they filmed it, and I can't remember how many cameras that they had, but and this is interesting because it actually ties into how, like, going back to something like Cloverfield, how they were able to, with that, the shaky sort of camera that you're using by the first person camera, how they're able to kind of lock the landscape in, this green screen landscape, and essentially create a virtual, like the virtual background and the virtual city behind you. That's essentially what they're doing now. And this tennis match, what they do is they have all these cameras filming the game, and then if they want to stop the people playing and say, "Oh, look, let's go back behind him now and see where his foot was when he stepped. Was he out of bounds?" Because they're filming in so many different cameras, they can do exactly what that bullet time is, and they are now able to very easily interpolate, okay, with all these different cameras, let's move over to this side, and they can basically almost create a camera position. They can put it anywhere in that bubble of space around that tennis game, where they can, like, okay, let's move the camera so it's right behind the tennis ball and see how his racket hits it. And it's really interesting the way that they're able to analyze elements within these frames now and basically create this three-dimensional world where they can interpolate anything within that space now.
Once they have modeled the space.
Once they have modeled the space, exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting stuff, the way that it kind of keeps expanding and improving.
Once you move past the bullet time, how do you feel the rest of the effects stand up? You know, we've got the creature effects, we've got essentially the robot, you know, the sentinels, we've got the ships, we've got the general production vision.
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to the two worlds. I think the effects in the real world, I think, are just great sci-fi effects. Everything from the battery tanks where all the people are, which like you said, I mean, that when the first time I saw that, it just like blew my mind that this is where Neo has been the whole time. I think all of that stuff is amazing. I enjoy the ships. I enjoy the Sentinels. All of that stuff works really well. I enjoy that sci-fi world. In the Matrix, I think the other thing that is really key to talk about is actually the stunt work.
Yes.
The wire work that they do with what's his name? Legendary Yuan Wu Ping.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes, Yuan Wu Ping. Just watching the stunt work, I mean, paired with all of the bullet time, even not the bullet time, it's just so amazing to watch the wire work that these people do.
It is amazing, and I think it's, you know, we talked about like so many things in that one last little phrase. The first is the sort of homage to great sci-fi sort of production design that has come before it, right? I mean, the Geiger-esque sort of look of the pods, of the battery pods, and the very much the sort of sci-fi militaristic look of the ships, and the just sort of old, broken down, hodgepodge, kludged together junk pile of the Nebuchadnezzar and soon to be the other ships that are introduced in the later films, I think make such a perfect contrast to what we see in the real world, and I love this idea. I think it further goes to cement the why they the machines created the Matrix the way they did, because the machines, it just highlights that the machines don't need any artifice. That everything is just 100% functional, and cleanliness and order is artifice. And so that to me is one of those little cultural messages that I really resonate with. But the stunt work in particular, when you look at how this film ends up being such a great genre mashup, from the sort of the kung fu flicks that we love so much, to inject a science fiction or a cyberpunk film with this wonderful sort of kung fu vibe, I think was such a great choice.
Well, and it strikes me that they, interestingly, it feels like they went after that same sort of pattern that Star Wars did so effectively, using kind of the sword fighting as kind of the almost like that samurai feel that you have with the lightsabers and all the sword work that they do in all those films, in creating that as a new tech, kind of a new cool technique in that sci-fi world. This sci-fi world was able to use just all the cool kung fu stuff because of the way that it looks, but because the way they're able to learn and adapt and expand upon it once they have these skills and they go back into the Matrix. It makes it I mean, it's just amazing to watch, and I think it works really well in the context of this particular sci-fi world.
You know, I love that you bring up Star Wars. I actually had a thought similar to that, and mostly it comes in the contrast of the original trilogy and the prequels, where you get the feeling that they thought, wow, this was a neat genre mashup. We're going to do just a lot more of it. And it ends up being, ends up losing some of the magic, I think, in particularly in the first one. And
and I think also those are all CG people float.
Right,
I don't
right.
think there's nearly as much wire work in that. I think, I mean, you see Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. I mean, when they're flipping around and doing all that stuff, it's little CG versions of them.
Right. The video game versions of them.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with that, and I think that's one of the things that when I mentioned that my impression of the Wachowskis at this point was, their reliance on practical effects in addition to special effects or CG effects. This is what I mean. Like, this is, I think, watching the wire work grounds the film.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It gives you that sense of reality, not surreality, even in a world that they did a really effective job of building as surreal.
Yeah, well, it's because it becomes so tangible. These fights are not just these over-the-top surreal sci-fi fights. Like, if you look at a bad example, I think I don't know if you saw it, but Wanted, that came out 6 years ago.
This is
Timur
Angelina
Bekmambetov.
Jolie, yeah.
Right. That was a movie that I think created this kind of I don't know. It's hard to describe that sci-fi world, but it was like where these people had these strange powers, but they were still kind of in regular time, but they could like bend how bullets moved and stuff like that. That didn't feel tangible. It didn't feel logical. This feels tangible. It feels logical. All of the fights that they have in this film all feel like these actors are actually present. And that's largely because these actors were present. I mean, they almost never had stunt people. I mean, they were all doing their own stunts. They were all doing their own fights. And I think it really shows in just the fact that it feels so present. Everything about it feels very tangible.
Well, and to your point, that becomes one of the anchors that drags the next two films down.
Yes.
As soon as you introduce 200 Agent Smiths and put fake Neo fighting them with a telephone pole, that is when we start to lose track of to lose the thread.
Absolutely. That's what starts feeling like now I'm just watching a video game and I don't get the controller.
Yeah, right.
And it's very hard to watch. That is one of the hardest moments to get through in this trilogy. And I think that's exactly why, because they take out anything tangible and real, just like you said.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the people. Shall we?
Yes.
The people of the film, this is obviously the Wachowskis, Andy, nay, Larry Wachowski at the time. Mm-hmm. We've talked a little bit about their background in comics. That they brought just a magical story, and my take is that there are some parts in this film that are just downright goofy. As we talk about it, I've been blaming a lot of it on Keanu. I think they deserve some of the blame there too. There's just some goofiness that doesn't fit the world for me, but generally, I find this film is one of the things I think they do exceedingly well is the world building part up front. I think the real art of the first act of this film is in delivering a world in which I could believe that the Matrix exists so fully. It is an extremely tight production in that light for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're very visual storytellers. They know how to create their worlds. for the good and bad of their films. I think Bound is fantastic. I think this is fantastic. I think the second and third Matrix films have elements that work. I feel like they're a little messy, but I mean, I am curious to actually, after watching this, I really actually do want to go watch them right now and just kind of finish the story. Speed Racer, I really hated that.
I couldn't stand it.
I know it has its fans, but I don't know what those people enjoy about it because I had such a hard time getting through that film.
It was just heartbreaking. It
never ended. It just went on forever.
Yeah.
Cloud Atlas, we've talked about that on the show. I think it's an interestingly divisive film. I really enjoy it, and I find it very. It's an ambitious mess, is what I've always said, and I think you and Chad, when we talked about it, had a lot more problems with it.
It's a mess of ambition.
It is a mess of ambition. And then they have Jupiter Ascending coming out this year, which looks fantastic. It looks like they're, again, creating a very ambitious sci-fi world that we're all going to have to jump into and figure out with them as they give us the story. I'm very excited about it. It could be a big, ambitious mess. It could be the next Matrix. Who knows? All I know is it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about Jupiter Ascending. I'm generally optimistic about their original universes, and I think that gets back to this world building skill that I think they have, that they do very well.
And something else that it seems like they're kind of sticking with Jupiter Ascending, I was reading about some of the stunt work, and they actually, as opposed to doing some CG stunts and stuff, they actually had the actors. I think it was Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis, when he's wearing his little rocket shoes. They had them on a wire. Dangling off the back of a truck. They were filming them as like going around corners and stuff just to get the movements and stuff with his shoes and everything. And in order to actually make it real and not have to CG all of it. And I was like, okay, so they're going back to doing some real stunt work.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
great.
kind of, it excited me. It made me feel like, yeah, these are people who understand, maybe they've learned from some of their past films that it's that tangible feeling that they had in this first Matrix film that made it work so well.
That makes me excited to watch the commentary of that movie that hasn't been finished yet.
That's right.
Other key production assets you want to talk about?
Bill Pope did the cinematography. I think.
Yes, indeed.
He's effective. He does good stuff. He's worked. He did some Sam Raimi stuff early on. Worked with these guys quite a bit. He's going to be doing Ant-Man. He did The World's End. Scott Pilgrim. So
he does Cosmos. Oh my goodness! Have you been watching Cosmos at all?
I haven't.
Andy, it is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's talk about an ambitious mess. It's on Hulu.
Well, I don't have Hulu. I have to wait till it's on Netflix. I know.
It is great, and I just I'm fascinated by it only because of the money that they are putting into creating the visuals for this thing. I mean, it's beautiful. But to your point, he has Bill Pope. He's got quite a list of accomplishments and a lot of great films, and one, when we talk about the sort of ambition of the cinematography, he did Team America World Police. Talk about a challenging shoot.
Oh yeah.
From our friends.
So a film that was designed to not take out the artifice.
Right.
They wanted to make sure they kept in all the artifice as much as possible.
Exactly. And I think executed well, but judging by the everything I've read about the Trey Parker and Matt Stone and Bill Pope, they all said this was a great thing to do once, and we're never gonna do any of this again. It was that hard. Yeah. So fascinating.
Well, but he certainly knows how to do effects films. I mean, he's been doing effects films for a very long time. Very long time. So his stuff looks great. Don Davis's music, I think, is part of the reason the world works so well. I think his music is as much a part of the Matrix trilogy as the filmmaking style and the performances. There's something about the music in these films that just feels like it comes from this world.
I could not agree more. I absolutely, and I think it's Don Davis is, particularly in this film, is kind of an unsung hero. I think it makes the place.
Yeah, it has a very interesting electronic vibe that sometimes it almost feels like it's that sort of score that becomes the sound effects. Is like, am I listening to the music, or are these sound effects of the world? And I love it when music kind of can play that,
Right.
So he does a great job. Really, like the whole production team. I think the production design is just stunning in this film, going kind of the darker greenish look in the Matrix world, and then kind of the bluer, a little more organic look in the quote-unquote real world. Owen Patterson did that, and I think he did an amazing job with the production design.
Yes. That's an interesting comment. I find myself thinking about it a lot, because everything is really, it's mostly green, right? The experience is mostly green, and it gets blue and downright white in the later movies. But I find it funny that when you look at the posters of the three movies side by side, the first one is purple, and the other two are green. It's like they couldn't figure out the color scheme. That's one I couldn't figure out what they're going for.
Yeah, they did kind of make a purpley color on that first one. Who knows? Who knows what they were thinking there?
That's the big mystery. Everything else we've got figured out, but that's the big mystery.
Why the purple poster?
Yeah. And okay, so who else? Anybody else on your list?
I think that's about it. We talked about John Gaeta and the visual effects. I think are just really just kind of mind blowing all through this film. And I think paired with the production design and the overall feel, I do give a lot of credit to Kim Barrett, the costume designer on this film, because I think the costumes, again, feel as much a part of the world as just the world itself. I mean, the way that Neo looks and Trinity looks and Morpheus looks, particularly when they're in the Matrix, I mean, I think that defined this whole notion of that kind of cyberpunk vibe for a very long time. They just had that slick, just kick-ass look, and it made everybody kind of want to be that badass, I mean, look at Equilibrium, which came out 4 years later. It's like they patterned everything about the way that those characters dressed in that film, and even the effects in that film right after this, right straight out of the playbook on this film.
Boy, that's funny. That's a great point. I found that movie totally unforgettable, or totally forgettable.
I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember anything about it. So it's one that I'd be interested to go back and revisit and see if I found it enjoyable anymore.
That wasn't that Christian Bale?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the costumes, they really, that's one of the things that's what you remember. I mean, that's what makes makes these characters iconic. And I find, I agree with you. In the Matrix, I think they're sort of the most fun, particularly when you look at some of the contrasts in the background, right? Because kind of Trinity's in the black leather catsuit, and Neo's got the duster, and Morpheus has the clip on his sunglasses, and they all have this thing. And then you have like Switch, who is the only one in white.
Yeah, right.
Belinda McClory playing Switch, which I thought was a great choice, and Cypher in his just he's practically street clothes. It's like he couldn't quite commit, and you knew from the start that he wasn't that he was going to be just because he couldn't commit to the clothes.
Right.
Fascinating. And then we meet the Oracle, who is dressed completely matronly.
Right.
Where's
baking cookies.
We're baking cookies. Hugo Weaving.
There is something about Hugo Weaving. He said that when he was trying to find the voice for Agent Smith, he kind of patterned it off of 50s, that whole 50s newsreader style. and I think it works really well. Kind of the depth his voice goes to, and the pace with which he speaks. I just love hearing Hugo Weaving just say anything as Agent Smith. He is so enjoyable through all three films, really. I mean, he's a pleasure. He really jumped into this part 110%. And I just love everything about him, because he's just like he's like one of those bad guys that you just love to hate, because there's something about that, the way that, the way you smell, and just the way that he plays it up. I think he really latched onto the character and found a great place to take him.
Oh, he really did. And, when they're interrogating Neo, or interrogating Thomas Anderson, and in the sequence where they erase his mouth, that is, of all the crazy stuff that happens in this film, that's probably the most haunting for me. That's the idea that they can erase his ability to communicate so effortlessly, and the way he plays that sequence, I think, is fantastic. These iconic, not just lines, but phrasings of specific words that stick with you, Mr. Anderson. I think that's just brilliant. And easily, one of the most memorable performances in the trilogy.
Wasn't it like recently, like some company used him as Agent Smith in their ads? Like it was like General Motors, or I can't remember who it was, but it just felt so weird. It's like, gosh, do you want to use Agent Smith in your ads? It feels a little backwards.
Yeah,
it's a great character, but
it was GE. For their connected hospitals.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I don't know. It seemed like something that would backfire.
Yeah, no, you probably don't pick the villain when you want to do the hospital. Just saying.
I don't know. I got a great line of Chianti. I was going to get Hannibal Lecter to come in and sell it for me. What do you think, Anthony Hopkins?
That may be too touch on the nose with, since they've got the show right now, Hannibal.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, he is still on the air.
This was Hugo Weaving's first trilogy, right?
Yes, and I think he was on. He is on track, I think. There was somebody who figured this out, and I think it wasn't Hugo Weaving who won, but who could do the three of the big trilogies.
He did 3,
but I know somebody else beat him to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's the part that got trumped. I'm going to have to find that. Because it was a huge surprise to me. Because, of course, Hugo Weaving has The Matrix. He's in all 3 of the Matrix movies. And he did Lord of the Rings, all 3 of those. Mm-hmm. And now The Hobbit, right?
Well, actually, that will be the 4th one.
That'll be the 4th
Transformers
one.
also.
Oh, yeah. See, I'd already forgotten that.
So the Hobbit trilogy, was he in...
the first one?
I can't remember. He's in the first one. I can't remember if he was in the second one.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe not.
Yeah, I can't remember. But Ian McKellen is in The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and the X-Men films.
Yeah.
So, and if they have if this current round turns into another trilogy, then he would have 2, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and 2 X-Men. So he would have 4. So I don't know. I mean, those 2 seem to be competing neck and neck, though. I'm curious if there's somebody else that you're thinking of.
Yeah, there is somebody else that I'm thinking of, and it's going to make me crazy.
That's not good.
Yes, it's possible. Yeah, well, I'm gonna figure this out and post it to Facebook.
Excellent.
Yeah, because now I'm getting sucked down the rabbit hole here.
Take the blue pill. Take the blue
pill. Okay. Who else? Who else do you want to talk about?
Lawrence Fishburne is always just awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I really just love Carrie-Anne Moss. I mean, it's hard to not love Carrie-Anne Moss ever, because she's either badass or just super cool.
Yeah, she's reasonably awesome throughout this film, and really, I'm just saying, all of these guys, Keanu too, they look great physically, right? They just look tight.
Yep.
And I props to them as as a somebody trying to figure out how to be able to get up out of bed in the morning when I'm 80.
Now here's something to think about. Chew on this. What would you say with Will Smith playing the role of Neo? Because he was offered it and he turned it down so he could make Wild Wild West. Oh, that was a bad call. That was just
oh man.
Yep.
Well, everybody's got to live with a couple of big regrets.
Yeah. I guess Nicolas Cage turned it down. Brad Pitt and Val Kilmer turned it down, and Johnny Depp turned it. Or Johnny Depp, I think they offered it to Keanu Reeves before Johnny Depp, even though Johnny Depp was the Wachowskis' first choice.
Wow.
That also strikes me as weird because, and maybe it's just in looking back at the film, I just have a hard time seeing anybody play this except Keanu Reeves. He is, I think, the perfect person to play Neo. I really enjoy him in this role, and I feel like he has the right presence for this kind of person who's lost in this world and finds the answers when he escapes down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Well, that's the truth. He's a believable dumb guy in that first section.
Oh man, Joe Pantoliano is always fun to watch.
Yes, I think he is. I like him. Talk about a grounding effect on this film. I mean, he's I think one of the most entertaining. I maybe coming off of having seen him, having seen him recently in Bound, and I just thought he was absolutely terrific in Bound, and to see him in this film was just such a pleasant surprise. But I find I find what he brings to this film, like there's no veil in front of him. When I'm watching Keanu, I sort of feel like there's like a fog between me and Keanu Reeves, and with Pantoliano, I just feel like he's right there in the room with me every time I look at him.
Yeah,
he's great.
He definitely feels like he's got a presence, and it's great that he and Carrie-Anne Moss both got to team up again in Memento the very next year.
Right.
Another
outstanding.
Fantastic. Yeah, with another Aussie.
Yes,
but not Hugo.
Yes,
the other Aussie.
The other Aussie that no, I don't want to go there. All right, okay, Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, anyone else that you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. No, there really isn't. But I'm just going down the list because this is not one of those films. This is not one of those films where I watch it and I think, "Wow, that obscure actor behind the scenes has really gone places." Do you know what I mean? This is not one of those movies.
It's definitely one where going into the second and third one, which I think was 4 years later.
Yeah.
Shot back to back, they definitely started casting some bigger people to fill a lot of those other shoes.
Right.
For good and bad, I think. For good and bad.
Generally, solid flick. Did fairly well in the box office, would you say?
It did fairly well for itself. This movie, it came out, like I said, March 31st, 1999, the year of many, many, many great films. It cost $65 million to make. They had a really hefty budget for prints and advertising on this, $33 million. So all told $98 million, and when you adjust for inflation, that's almost it was $137 million about. So they had a pretty good size budget. Not the biggest budget that we've seen. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade adjusted had a $400 million budget. So it still was kind of considered a big budget film, but like I said, these were second time filmmakers. The studio is still a little unsure, so they didn't give them all of the money they needed. The movie made domestically, let's see, what did it make? $172 million, and internationally almost $293 million. So all told, it adjusted internationally, it made about no, that's it, not adjusted. It made $650 million adjusted for inflation. So it made a pretty penny.
Well, it's no Frozen.
You're right. It certainly isn't. It certainly isn't. Yeah. Yeah. Adjusted profit per finished minute, $3.7 million.
Well, that's not bad.
Not too shabby.
Just saying.
Didn't crack our top 10 though. It came in at number 12.
Number 12. Missed it by that much.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting film to talk about now that as I start thinking about going into our flick charting, because I wonder specifically if we hit The Matrix against films like, it'd be easy to put it against films like Strange Days, the other sort of jacking in film, right?
Mm-hmm.
But against Dark City,
I'd pick The Matrix.
See, I'm not sure. All right, let's do it.
It's tricky. You're right. It is tricky trying to figure it out. But I don't know. There's something really watchable about The Matrix. And Dark City, there's something that's a little less watchable, even though I find it really original.
Okay.
But anyway, let's jump in.
All
and
right,
see.
let's do it. So we're going to do Flickchart. You should go there. You should go to flickchart.com. And when you get there, you should look for the next reel. And then you should like us and friend us and just get generally close to us over there. Because that's where you're going to find our list of our stack ranked list of our favorite films that we've talked about on this show. And if you head over to thenextreel.com and you click on the little extras menu, you can jump straight to our top 100, our golden ticket list, and let's see where The Matrix falls.
Let's see, The Matrix or Gattaca. Interesting little sci-fi pairing,
Yeah, right.
but I would go with The Matrix.
Yeah, I'd go with The Matrix.
The Matrix or The Outlaw Joseph Wales. It's a good film, but I'd go The Matrix.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I'm finding this... yeah, okay. I'll go with The Matrix.
The Matrix or The Sting?
The Sting.
I'm a little torn on that one. I feel like I would go with The Matrix.
Hands down, no contest. Redford and Newman. Please.
I don't know, man. It's a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but the Matrix is, I don't know. I still find my mind getting blown. I know you're just not finding your mind getting blown this latest time, but the Matrix is something original, really, really unique. It did something great with sci-fi.
It did conceptually, but when I compare it to a movie like The Sting, I'm comparing it to The People, and there is no one in The Matrix that has that has on display that human connection on screen like Newman and Redford and Robert Shaw, and I mean it is such a wonderful human package of conspiracy and comedy, and I deeply love it.
Would you put it on over The Matrix?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I wouldn't, but I'm not saying I don't love it.
Do we need to rock, paper, scissors? I could do that.
We might have to, because
I'm willing to take that.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Rock.
Scissors. Ah.
I even gave it. Oh man, you totally ruined that one.
There must be a delay. I swear there's a delay. You stink.
You could. Oh, I said it like a second before you. Oh my goodness.
No, you did not. It was right at the same time. Are you kidding? There is a delay.
I guess there is.
You're killing me here.
All
right, what's next?
See now, this is the one that always trips us up. The Matrix or All the President's Men?
All the President's Men. Oh my God.
Oh, I would go The Matrix, but I will give you All the President's Men. I know.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm a giver, Pete. I'm a giver. The Matrix or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I would pick The Matrix.
And I would pick Eternal Sunshine. Oh,
man.
Talk about trippy, unique science fiction movies.
Yes. And, okay. I tend to find myself getting super depressed when I watch Eternal Sunshine, which is really the only reason, because you could make the case that it also has the wonderful character bits that I love so much about The Sting and All the President's Men in Eternal Sunshine. We get to know those people better. So by all rights, I should naturally pick Eternal Sunshine, and yet I still do not.
No, that's fine. I'll go with The Matrix for you. I'll give it that one.
All right, since we're horse trading.
The Matrix or The Hurt Locker? I would do The Matrix.
Yeah, I'll give you The Matrix.
And let's see, The Matrix or Forrest Gump?
Oh. All right. What's it going to be, Tom?
I know. That's a hard one. That's really hard because I love Forrest Gump.
I'm going to do The Matrix.
The Matrix is pretty... I'm going to go The Matrix too, believe it or not. All right, there we are. Wow, look at that. Number 9.
Cracking the top 10.
Yeah.
But that was a hard one. That was hard for me.
It was definitely it was a strong fight.
Well, I mean, I don't want to do that. It was an internal battle.
It was an internal battle on wire work.
Right. Right. Okay. Hey, good film. I think that feels about right to me. I mean, it feels like this film was revolutionary in so many areas, and eye-opening in so many areas, and mind-blowing in so many areas. And even though I have some challenges with it on this more recent viewing, I think it's absolutely it's a pivotal film in this sort of modern era of filmmaking.
If we end up doing Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions next year or at some time in the future, and you end up rewatching The Matrix just to kind of freshen your memory before you watch the other two and we talk about the other two, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on it then, when you may not be thinking about it quite as critically, but just like looking at it as a film to enjoy. See if it changes your opinion of it. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of really easy films to watch, what are we doing next week?
Well, we're starting a whole new series, which is going to be a fun one. We're actually talking about great film years. We're going to 1981, and we're going to talk about, we've got, I believe, 8 films slotted for 1981.
What a year, huh? Am I right?
There are a lot of really good films.
We are starting with, are we going to tell people? Is that what the thing is?
Or
are you holding out?
No, I think we direct them over to Letterboxd, where they can look at the films on our watch list.
Well, that's what I mean. I agree,
but yes, tell them.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. We can tell them next week at least, right?
Let's tell them right now.
Das Boot.
Yes.
Now, which version are you watching?
I'm going to watch the director's cut, the 4-hour.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I know that. I believe that Wolfgang Peterson says that that's the version that he feels is the one most true to his vision, because there was the TV version that's a whole bunch of, episodes. Then there was the original theatrical version. Then there's this director's cut, which that's the one I'm going to watch.
Yeah. This I can't wait to talk about this film. I find this film, I'm just going to say it, exceptional.
It is. It really is. And it's a powerful film.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely are films made on where you're kind of on the side of the Nazis and you're rooting for them.
That's really true.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true. Love this film. Can't wait to talk about this film next week. Das Boot, Wolfgang Peterson. Jawohl. Hey, good talk. I gotta go to bed.
You go to bed. I'm going to go jack in and go hang out in the Matrix for a few hours.
Andy.
Pete?
Dang it. It was one of those things where I was ready to do the toss, and all of the Matrix quotes came back to my head at the same time. And it was just going to come out. Follow the white, wake up, Andy Rabbit. What is it? Blue pill.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.